There's a moment that comes for everyone. That moment when your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty, and every fiber of your being screams at you to run. Maybe it's before a big presentation. Maybe it's before asking for that raise. Maybe it's just Sunday night thinking about Monday morning. For most people, that moment wins. Fear wins, and they spend their whole lives running from it, avoiding it, pretending it doesn't exist. But there was a group of people in ancient Japan who understood something that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. Fear isn't something you eliminate, it's something you train. I'm talking about a practice that's over 1,000 years old, a practice that neuroscience has now proven can literally rewire your brain's response to fear. And today, you're going to discover exactly what it is and how you can use it starting tomorrow. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Man Who Couldn't Stop Shaking. His name was Marcus, and he was 28 years old when he hit rock bottom. Not the dramatic kind of rock bottom you see in movies, the quiet kind. The kind where you wake up every day, go to work, come home, and realize you haven't really lived in years. Marcus had a job he hated but was too afraid to quit. He had ideas he never shared because what if people laughed? He had dreams he never pursued because what if he failed? Every single day was the same. Wake up with anxiety, go to work with anxiety, come home with anxiety, scroll through social media watching other people live the life he wanted, then fall asleep, only to do it all over again. But what broke him wasn't the anxiety itself. It was a wedding toast. His best friend was getting married, and Marcus was the best man. He had 3 months to prepare a 5-minute speech. 3 months. He wrote it, rewrote it, practiced it in the mirror 100 times. But when the moment came, when he stood up in front of 150 people, his mind went completely blank. His hands shook so badly he dropped the microphone. His voice cracked. He stammered through 2 sentences before sitting back down in humiliation. That night, lying in bed, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't live like this anymore. He couldn't be a prisoner to his own mind. So he did what anyone would do in 2024. He went down a Google rabbit hole, and what he discovered would change everything. Chapter 2. The Practice Nobody Talks About. The first thing Marcus found was a documentary about Zen monks in Japan. These weren't your typical monks sitting peacefully in temples. These were practitioners of something called Nikon, combined with an even older practice called Zaisa meditation under extreme conditions. But what really caught his attention was a specific ritual, one that made his comfortable Western mind recoil in discomfort. It was called Kangeko, the practice of training in the coldest part of winter, but it went deeper than that. The ancient practitioners didn't just meditate in the cold, they used something called takigyo, standing meditation under freezing waterfalls, combined with a mental practice called koan contemplation, where you hold paradoxical questions in your mind while your body is in extreme discomfort. Marcus read about how samurai would wake up at 3 a.m., walk to mountain waterfalls in the dead of winter, and stand under icy water while mentally reciting koans. Their bodies would scream, every instinct would tell them to run, but they stayed. And here's what Marcus discovered that changed everything. They weren't doing this to be tough guys. They were doing this because they understood something profound. When you can control your mind in the presence of extreme physical discomfort, you can control your mind anywhere. Think about it. If you can breathe steadily while every cell screams for you to panic, how hard is it to stay calm during a difficult conversation? But there was more. Marcus discovered the practice had 3 core components that worked together like a system. Chapter 3. The 3 Gates of Fearlessness. First gate, Shinrin-yoku with discomfort training. The first component was about voluntary exposure to discomfort in nature, not just taking a walk in the woods, but deliberately placing yourself in uncomfortable natural conditions while maintaining mental clarity. The ancient practitioners would sit in meditation during storms, practice breathing exercises in extreme heat or cold, and train their minds to remain calm regardless of external conditions. The logic was brutal in its simplicity. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, doesn't distinguish between types of threats. When you're freezing cold, it triggers the same alarm systems as when you're facing a business failure or public humiliation. Fight or flight. Panic mode activated. But here's the key. When you train yourself to override that panic response in one context, you're literally teaching your prefrontal cortex to stay in control when your amygdala is screaming. Modern neuroscience calls this stress inoculation. The Japanese called it forging the spirit. Second gate, Mokuso and the art of mental stillness. The second component was Mokuso, a specific form of meditation practiced before and after intense training. But this wasn't gentle, relaxing meditation. This was the practice of sitting in absolute stillness while your mind throws everything it has at you. Doubts, fears, regrets, anxieties, all of it comes up. And your job isn't to suppress it or fight it. Your job is to sit there and watch it like you're watching clouds pass in the sky. Not engaging, not reacting, just observing. There's a Zen saying that captures this perfectly. The obstacle is the path. Your fear isn't blocking you from courage. Your fear is the training ground for courage. The third component was Kaizen of the mind, the principle of continuous small improvements applied to mental training. The word Kaizen means continuous improvement, and while it's now famous in business, it originated in personal spiritual practice. The idea was simple but devastatingly effective. You don't try to conquer all your fears at once. You don't wake up one day and become fearless. Instead, you commit to being 1% braver every single day. Today, you do something that scares you just a little bit. Tomorrow, something slightly more challenging. Next week, something that would have paralyzed you last month. And gradually, over time, your comfort zone expands until things that used to terrify you barely register. The practitioners called this climbing the mountain one step at a time, and they understood that the person who tries to sprint up the mountain gives up, but the person who takes one step every day eventually reaches the summit.
Chapter 4. Marcus takes the first step. Marcus read all of this over a weekend, and on Monday morning he did something that felt completely insane. He woke up at 5 a.m., put on his running shoes, and went outside. It was November. It was 35 degrees, and he ran in just a t-shirt and shorts for 20 minutes. His body hated him. His mind created every excuse imaginable. You're going to get sick. This is stupid. You can start tomorrow when it's warmer. But Marcus had learned something from his research. That voice isn't protecting you. That voice is imprisoning you. So he ran, and when he got home, he stood in a cold shower for 3 minutes. Not enjoyable, not fun, but when he stepped out, something had shifted. He felt alive. He felt like he had done something difficult and won. That night, Marcus sat in Mokuso meditation for 10 minutes. He set a timer, sat on his floor, and watched his mind. And his mind went crazy. Every embarrassing moment from the past 10 years replayed in vivid detail. Every fear about the future cascaded through his consciousness. But he didn't move. He didn't pick up his phone. He didn't try to suppress the thoughts. He just watched. And slowly, gradually, the storm in his mind began to settle. Day 2, same thing. Cold run, cold shower, meditation. Day 3, same. By day 7, Marcus noticed something strange. He wasn't checking his phone first thing in the morning. He wasn't hitting snooze. He was waking up with a sense of purpose. By day 14, something even stranger happened. Marcus was in a meeting at work. His boss asked a question that Marcus knew the answer to, but as always, he stayed quiet. But this time, something was different. The fear arose. The usual voice started. Don't speak up. What if you're wrong? What if they judge you? But instead of obeying that voice automatically, Marcus watched it. He observed it like he'd been training himself to do. And then he took a deep breath, the same deep breath he took in the cold shower when his body was screaming at him to get out. And he spoke. I think the problem is in our approach to customer onboarding. If we change the sequence of steps, we could reduce drop-off by at least 20%. The room went quiet. His boss looked at him and then nodded. That's actually a really good point, Marcus. Let's explore that. Marcus left that meeting feeling like he just won a championship, not because his idea was accepted, but because he had acted despite the fear. He had trained for this moment every single morning in that cold shower, in that meditation, in those uncomfortable runs. Chapter 5: The Science Behind the Ancient Practice. If you're skeptical, I get it. It sounds too simple. Stand in cold water, sit in silence, do hard things, and suddenly you're fearless? But here's where it gets interesting. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what these ancient practitioners knew. Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford explains that when you voluntarily place yourself in stressful situations and maintain control, you're strengthening the connection between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. You're literally building a stronger brake pedal for your fear response. Studies on cold exposure show that it increases norepinephrine levels by up to 530%. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter that improves focus, attention, and your ability to handle stress. You're biochemically training yourself to perform under pressure. Meditation studies show that regular practice decreases the size and activity of the amygdala while increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex. In other words, your fear center gets quieter while your rational control center gets louder. And the Kaizen principle? Research on habit formation shows that small, consistent actions are far more effective than massive, sporadic efforts. Your brain responds better to daily 1% improvements than to occasional 100% efforts. The ancient Japanese practitioners didn't have fMRI machines or neuroscience journals, but they had centuries of experimentation and observation, and they figured out what science is only now confirming. Chapter 6: The 30-Day Transformation. Marcus continued the practice for 30 days. Every single morning he did 3 things: cold exposure for at least 3 minutes, Mokuso meditation for 10 minutes, and one action during the day that scared him. Some days the action was small, making eye contact with a stranger, ordering his coffee in a slightly louder voice. Other days it was bigger, sharing an idea in a meeting, calling that client he'd been avoiding, having a difficult conversation with his boss about his career path. But more importantly, his relationship with fear had fundamentally changed. Fear still showed up, but now when it appeared, Marcus smiled because he knew it meant he was about to grow. There's a beautiful paradox in this ancient practice. You don't train fear out of your mind by avoiding it. You train it out by running directly towards it over and over until your mind learns that fear is just a sensation, not a command. Chapter 7: Your Turn. Here's what nobody tells you about courage. It's not something you find. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build, one uncomfortable moment at a time. The ancient Japanese practitioners understood this. They didn't wait to feel brave before taking action. They took action and let courage follow. So here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow morning, start. You don't need a waterfall in the mountains. You just need a cold shower and 3 minutes of courage. You don't need a Zen temple. You just need a quiet corner and 10 minutes of honesty with your own mind. And then, during your day, do one thing that scares you. Just one. Send that email, make that call, share that idea. And when the fear shows up, and it will, don't run from it. Breathe into it, watch it, and act anyway. Do this for 30 days and come back. I promise you'll barely recognize the person you were when you started. Because in the end, the only difference between people who live in fear and people who live with courage isn't talent or genetics or luck. It's training. Daily, uncomfortable, unglamorous training. The ancient Japanese practitioners spent their entire lives perfecting this practice, but you don't need a lifetime. You just need to start. So, what will it be? Another year of waiting for the day you feel brave enough? Or will you start building courage today, one cold shower at a time? The choice, as always, is yours. But if you're reading this, I think you already know what you need to do. See you on the other side of fear.